Good afternoon, dear ladies and gentlemen. My name is Elias Grampas, and on behalf of the Secretariat of the European Parliament Intergroup on Climate Change, Biodiversity and Sustainable Development, I'm delighted to welcome you to today's online event, where we will be addressing European marine cooperation in the Mediterranean and beyond, as well as the significant added value of networks of marine protected area managers. This webinar is organized under the umbrella of the Intergroup, so I would like to take the opportunity to thank the Intergroup's MEPs, Mr. Bijou and Ms. Chabot, for co-hosting today's event. At the same time, on behalf of the Secretariat of the Intergroup, I would like to provide you with some housekeeping rules. Specifically, as we want to have a discussion as interactive as possible, I would like to invite our audience to send us your questions during the event. For that, you can use the Q&As platform at the right-hand side of your screen. And in doing so, please remember to choose the All Panelists option. Within your question, you can also note the speaker to whom your question is best addressed, so that on behalf of the Secretariat of the Intergroup, we can facilitate a fruitful discussion to follow. So once again, thank you all for joining us today. And without further ado, I would just like to let you know that unfortunately, due to unforeseen circumstances in the parliamentary agenda of MEP Mr. Stéphane Bijou, it would not be possible to provide the opening remarks live today, but I'm happy to let you know that we have received a video message intervention that carries Mr. Bijou messages forward. So I hope you enjoy this. Thank you very much. And as we heard from MEP Mr. Bijou, well, the ocean serves as a blue lung, but also as a key life reserve. At the same time, cooperation is the only way to succeed when it comes to marine biodiversity conservation and also with regards to ensuring sustainable use of our ocean resources. And of course, towards this direction, the networks of marine protected area managers have a crucial role to play. So on this note, I would like to provide the floor to our next speaker of today, that is Ms. Veronica Manfredi, who is Director in DG Environment at the European Commission and plays a pivotal role in leading Europe's position on various key priorities, inter alia including the protection of marine environments, but also DG Environment's work when it comes to regional sea conventions, which are both extremely relevant topics with regards to to today's discussion. So, Ms. Manfredi, the floor is yours.
Many thanks. I'm really delighted to be with all of you this afternoon, and also particularly delighted to participate to an event which is so much devoted to bring together the managers of our marine protected areas. I think that too often the role of these people that are really there to secure that these areas deliver according to the policy and legal targets which are there is not sufficiently valued, and I think it's just wonderful that the EP Intergroup has decided to devote an event of this kind to look at this. On top of being myself Mediterranean, I feel honored to participate to an event which focuses on Mediterranean. Maybe we should immediately recognize from the outset that if Europe is and continues to be a tourist destination globally #1, out of that tourism, the Mediterranean attracts around 1/3 of the interest across the world, which puts a lot of pressure, but also open up an incredible amount of opportunities precisely for the areas which are around the Mediterranean. So it is also with this pair of eyes that I would like to give you a little bit an overview of what we are doing right now in the European Commission to really implement the promise of the biodiversity strategy. And I would say, first of all, we are doing things knowing that the impetus, the vision, the policy goals that we are trying to help to co-set with the co-legislators will necessitate the help of everyone, and in particular the strong will and determination by our member states, of course. First of all, I think we are helping to take out a wrong myth that, if you protect the environment, this comes with, zero economic activities, and then somehow there is a loss somewhere. I am happy to have noticed in preparation of this event that even a recent study which has been done precisely for the MedPan has shown once again that if you invest just 1,000 euro to well protect a marine area, typically you get back around 13,000 euro in a not too long time span. So the socio-economic benefits which are linked to the creation of an effective marine protected area are again and again brought back to the literature. And here I think that the marine protected areas managers have a particularly good role to play also to showcase this future which is possible. The second point is we should start from an observation of the reality. Today, across the Mediterranean, we have 8.3% of areas under some form of protection. Out of all of the sea, 8.3%, out of which only 0.04% under very strict protection. So it means we are not protecting that much. And if we are serious to the findings also of the biodiversity strategy, notably that we should really try and secure that by 2030 we have increased our coverage to 30%, and out of which at least 10% under strictly protected area, we should do more. But this is not just because we think environment is per se something to be protected, which of course we all believe, especially in this group, but because we know that this means a different socio-economically correct way of developing together. And this is why, in order to accompany the efforts of our member states, in May this year, we have produced specific guidance on which I'm happy to hear also potential feedback to help the member states in identifying the best areas where to designate further areas of protection. And we believe, of course, in visions that there where it makes economic sense and environmental sense, co-benefits are created and win-win solutions are created so that you can accommodate a certain level of human activities without risking the achievement of the overarching conservation objectives. Examples, sustainable aquaculture and marine protected areas, algae production and marine protected areas. The European College of Commissioners is discussing in these very hours about the follow-up to the REPowerEU communication. How can we become better in achieving an increased strategic autonomy also from Russia, whilst at the same time, protecting the environment? Can we create win-win zones of marine protected areas and, for example, wind energy production? These are the kind of things, these are the kind of examples where I think the colleagues of marine protected areas can really help us in identifying possibilities, concrete technical solutions, design innovation that can allow reconciling the dots. By the next few months, we are planning to come up with an ad hoc action plan also on conserving fisheries resources while protecting marine ecosystems. We hope actually this can be adopted still before this summer break. It is an action plan as announced by the biodiversity strategy itself, which is really looking at how to reconcile the use of bottom contacting fishing gear with biodiversity goals, meaning can we really allow this type of techniques there where it creates irreparable damage? And in our view, the answer is very simple, and it is a sound resounding no. Not there where the objective is the one of conserving and protecting. And I must say that we took note with some interest about the last position taken by the European Parliament in plenary when discussing the sustainable blue economy. It seems to me that for the time being, the Parliament has been going towards a direction of saying, well, we want to prohibit the use of detrimental techniques mainly in strictly protected marine protected areas. I think there is scope for further discussion there. If we are building something for protection, maybe we should simply not allow certain type of damaging fishing techniques, but I'm happy to discuss this further. In the same vein, we took note with interest about the fact that the Parliament has clearly said that it considers that in all marine protected areas, we should, however, ban certain type of human activities such as mining or fossil fuel extraction, which indeed are difficult to reconcile with the conservation objectives. So I think this is also the kind of exercise that we are all collectively called to carry out today, distinguish what is good and creating co-benefits towards what is clearly essentially harming, not in line with the sustainable development goals and the Green Deal objectives that we are giving to ourselves as the economic and socio-economic model of development for Europe, and say no to certain things. You mentioned, Mr. Grampas, when presenting me the fact that I have the honor actually to lead the department, which is also overseeing the activities of our regional sea conventions. And here it's also an opportunity for me to acknowledge and recognize the good work carried out, in particular by the Barcelona Convention for our Mediterranean. I think that in particular the last meeting we held in December, which has been instrumental to achieving an important ministerial declaration to further boost the protection of our Mediterranean Sea, has to be acknowledged. And I'm particularly proud of the fact that in that context we also managed to achieve for the first time agreement among all Mediterranean states on submitting a proposal to the International Maritime Organization towards building an emission control area across the Mediterranean. Let's hope that at IMO this file can advance pretty swiftly. We are ahead of a number of very important rendezvous, as we all know. COP15 is coming up soon. I think that it's a really moral, legal, political duty of the European Union to come up with a position that is strong, setting the tone worldwide, as also called by our president, and showing that we can lead by example for a protection of our world ocean that indeed is perfectly in line with the Sustainable Development Goals. And my final message is very simple. When it comes to the oceans, for the reason that Mr. Bijoux so clearly explained, half of our breath coming from it, the vast majority of species hosted by it, we are really literally on the same boat. And I don't see how, without making of the ocean our biggest ally, we can travel very far. So with this note and on this thinking, I look forward to a very interesting conference. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ms. Manfredi, for highlighting, of course, the importance of marine cooperation, but also for presenting us with the marine ambition of the EU biodiversity strategy, the European Commission vision overall, but also for highlighting how MPA's networks contribute to marine biodiversity conservation, not only ecologically, but also socially and economically, as underlined within your remarks. So on this note, I would like to thank you very much for joining us today. And then moving on with regards to the agenda of today's discussion, I'm happy to introduce you to our excellent set of speakers. So we're starting with panel 1, where we have MEP Mr. Bijou. Once again, we have received a video message intervention that carries MEP's messages forward for today's discussion. We also have Ms. Emma Noren, who is Vice Mayor of Lysekil and also Rapporteur for the Committee of the Regions opinion on local and regional authorities protecting the marine environment on behalf of COR, which stands for the Committee of the Regions, of course. And last but not least, Ms. Marie Romani as well, who is the Executive Secretary of METPAN, the network of Mediterranean marine protected areas, and also holds a degree of marine engineering and a specialized master in water management. So before we kick off the discussion, I would like to provide the floor to MEP Mr. Bijou through the second video message intervention of the day. So thank you once again to MEP Mr. Bijou. I hope that, turning to our audience, I hope that depending on the quality of your internet connection, the sound and video were well received also on your end. And then coming back to the key points expressed by Mr. Bijou, of course, cooperation is significant when we're looking at solutions, and specifically with regards to the creation of One Blue Belt, also the support for SDGs and EU policies implementation. And towards this direction, as underlined by MEP Mr. Bijou, Europe must ensure support and trust for local actors who know the realities of the field, as underlined by Mr. Bijou. Of course, last but not least, Mr. Bijou referred to the key importance of the Interreg program, for which I'm sure we'll be hearing more in the later in the stages of the events today. So, on this note, I'm very happy to turn to our next speaker, Ms. Emma Noren, from the Committee of the Regions. Ms. Noren, well, good afternoon. Welcome to today's discussion. You have been also the inter alia, the rapporteur for the COR opinion on local and regional authorities protecting the marine environment. So I think it would be of great interest to hear from you on the important role that the Committee of the Region plays towards this direction, but also the key role of partnerships with the regions when it comes to marine projects.
Yes, thank you so much, and thank you for the invitation. I am actually a marine biologist from the beginning, and it was the love for the sea that made me go into politics to try to make a change. And as you said, I'm a member of the Committee of the Regions, and for those who don't know it, it's the consultative body of the EU representing local and regional authorities in the EU process, mainly by adopting opinions. But we are also in the advisory group for the intergroup, and our cooperation there is very important. I'm happy to contribute, and we hope that we can continue to do that. Well, let me start. Like marine protection is a great issue and of great importance for both local and regional communities, and of course on national and EU level. And we have to have a multi-level governance approach is necessary. It's depending, as you heard, of where and how and what we will protect, and we need to have all the perspective if we're going to make it possible and also functional. And of course, in the Committee of the Regions, we represent all different kinds of communities. Myself from Sweden, not Mediterranean, and we also have countries that has no shore or don't belong to any sea. But still, this is a strong subject because we know that what's happening in the sea often start at land. So we have to have the from source to sea perspective when we're talking about how to protect the sea. And we also know that the ocean plays an essential role to maintain the global climate equilibrium by neutralizing CO2 emissions and so on. And a healthy sea is also something that help us to reduce the effects of climate change. And you said that you talked about the opinion that I was the rapporteur for, and that was last year. And it was very comprehensive opinion, and all voted in favor for this. And this has been something that we will continue to work with in the Committee of the Regions. And what we see is that local and national level has a great importance in how to maintain the MPAs, for example. But they also need help for the planning. So we have this blue belt. So they are connected, connectivity between each other. And we also see now, especially with the climate change, that common areas that usually are not considered to be something to value for protection actually need protection because we need to have refuge when it comes to climate change. And to that knowledge, we need to help together in these networks to see where are the stepping stones, where do we need the protection. We also stress out that we see we need this 30% protection that is proposed by the Commission and 10% to have strict protection, because as the Ms. Manfredi said, we have a large area that are protected, but only a tiny percent, less than 1%, actually have a strict protection. So what is the meaning of MPA? And there we need to have the same laws and rules together and make this in a way that is efficient and also work for both local and regional authorities as national authorities with the whole EU umbrella on top of it. We also see that there need to have a strong umbrella again, sorry, but for all the oceans and maritime issues. Now we talk about MPAs, but we need to have something to pull this all these different threads together. And from the Committee of the Regions, we actually proposed that it should be an ocean law, like the climate law on the EU level, that you have to consider how things affect the ocean when you're doing things. And I think that if we had that perspective with our ocean glasses on when we take different opinions and proposals on all the levels, we will have a much stronger force to do this together. And with this opinion, we stress out a strong message that this is important and that we want to be a part of it, and we have to do it together. And all different levels need to work together, and we need to have this networking, to have this functioning group that we actually are needed, because we need a healthy sea and we need the refuge for the biodiversity. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ms. Noren. And indeed, cooperation at various levels is extremely important. So it was with pleasure having you as speaker at the first panel of today's discussion. And then moving ahead with our next speaker is Ms. Marie Romani, who is the Executive Secretary of MEDPAN, the network of Mediterranean Marine Protected Areas. So it would be with pleasure, Marie, to hear from you, perhaps more on the core activities of MEDPAN and some best practices concerning the MPA Networks project example.
Thank you very much. Good afternoon. It's a pleasure for me to present the MEDPAN network. But before that, I would like to give a short snapshot of the situation of marine protected areas in the Mediterranean. As Mrs. Manfredi mentioned, some figures as well, and really here you have the map with the main MPA designation that exists in the Med. So both national MPAs, but also all the Marine Natura 2000 sites. But also we have the Pelagos Sanctuary that is an international MPA. And we have also within the framework of the Barcelona Convention, all the specially protected areas of Mediterranean importance. So you can see rapidly on this map all the situation and also the difference, the disparities between both EU and non-EU countries. But not only, you can see also that the MPAs are really small, apart some exception. And so here you have the figures, and those figures were mentioned by Mrs. Manfredi. But just to say that when we are talking about this objective of 30%, we are quite far in the Mediterranean in terms of coverage. And when we talk about 10% of a strict protection in the Mediterranean, at this stage, we are at 0.04% of coverage. Beyond those figures, here is an insight into an important aspect of marine protected areas, and it was said by Mr. Bijou and Mrs. Manfredi at the beginning. It's about management. So here is some results of an analysis that we develop in the Mediterranean. I will not go into details, but just for you to have a look, this survey was done towards 152 nationally designated MPAs in the Mediterranean. And you can see that there are really some gaps in terms of, for example, staff on site to manage the MPA at local level, suitable regulation, also the question of regular surveillance, and the question also of budget and governance of those MPA. So these are some key aspects of what we call the effective management that is really needed in the years to come. Oops, sorry. Okay, and so this is the situation in the Mediterranean. Of course, we have to have this look in front of the key MPA targets for the almost 10 years to come. First, the CBD Global Biodiversity Framework that is currently discussed, but also the European Biodiversity Strategy, and also for the Mediterranean, of course, the Barcelona Convention and the post-2020 strategy for MPAs and over effective conservation measures that was just approved in the last COP of the Barcelona Convention last year, and also the Union for the Mediterranean with the Greener Med agenda. So within all those key institutional frameworks, there are important MPA targets. And I have to say that together with the SPARAC, that is the Specially Protected Area Regional Activity Center within the Barcelona Convention, so MedPan and SPARAC for many years lead a process that is called the Mediterranean MPA Forum. And this is let's say, an implementation support framework to be sure to have a clear roadmap to guarantee the implementation of all the international and targets in the Mediterranean. And recently, so last year, together with key partners, we organized a Mediterranean MPA forum in Monaco. This was a highly participatory process and the finalization of a process of more than 2 years where we involved different stakeholders, of course, the MPA management bodies, the national and also local public authorities, the scientists, the NGOs, the different international and regional institutions, also networks of key actors like fishers, like networks of cities, the economic sector, and also the enforcement authority. Many environmental prosecutors were attend this event. And this event, the idea was really to define together all those key stakeholders a road towards 2030. The idea is really of this roadmap is really to boost the implementation of the MPA policy commitments, but also to really make sure that all the stakeholders are committed to be involved and mainly through cooperation in the implementation of those key targets. And finally, this roadmap, really the added value is to prioritize some key action and to identify some key partnership also to reach the goals. Here are some key recommendations from this roadmap that was finalized last year. The first thing is about MPA management effectiveness. So this is really related to the. This is really key in addition to the coverage, let's say, to the percentage of MPA. Behind this, there is also the MPA financial sustainability that is a key issue. And it was also mentioned by Mrs. Manfredi, that there is this importance to enhance protection through, let's say, more strict protection in the Mediterranean. Of course, some key recommendations were also deal with climate change and invasive species to develop some key action on that. And the final recommendation was about networks of MPA managers. That is the topic today, and also cooperation between those networks with networks of other stakeholders, like fishers, like cities. Why? Because those human networks of MPA managers, it was said by Mr. Bijou at the beginning, are essential for the establishment of the ecological network of MPA, because they improve MPA practical skills and they help to address common conservation and management issues. It was said by Mr. Bijou, this solidarity towards the same challenges. And the idea and what happened within those human networks is that they build community of actors. And important also, in addition to the technical, let's say, objective of those networks, is that they can support and inform decision-making process based on the reality of the field. And if we come to the specific example of MedPan in the Mediterranean, so MedPan is a network of strongly committed members, but also partners. So members are MPA managers and partners are all the other governmental and non-governmental organizations acting at local, national, or Mediterranean level that are contributing and dealing with MPA. This is a dynamic human cooperation at Mediterranean scale that also transcends political barriers. And this is a science-based learning and adaptive organization with a true bottom-up approach. So mainly the mission of MedPan is really to contribute to this system of Mediterranean MPAs through this active networking between MPA managers and other actors at all levels to increase knowledge, capacities of MPA, but also improve awareness on the MPA value and to contribute to MPA policy implementation as well as MPA funding. This is the main mission. Today, MedPan gather more than 131 organizations within all the Mediterranean countries, and this represents almost 190 managed MPAs. Here are the key pillars, let's say, of the strategic approach of MedPan to build capacity through some development of practical tools, training, experience sharing, workshop, small grants, and pilot projects. So this is really let's say, the technical part of MedPan. This is based on MPA knowledge. Together with the Barcelona Convention, we have developed a database that is called MAPAMed. And so this is based on MPA databases, but also analysis on different key topics related to MPA, and they are numerous. And the last pillar of the activities of MedPan is about developing and promoting MPA policy in the Mediterranean and beyond. And I told you about this MPA forum process, but also a key objective of MedPan is really to coordinate MPA voice from the field towards the decision-making process. MedPan is also really supporting in the Mediterranean networks of MPA managers at national and sub-regional level, and we will hear from them after today, but also to promote thematic networks in the Med. And we are really well connected also beyond the Mediterranean through the European Ocean Governance Project with other networks of MPA managers. And this is key because, as Mr. Bijou says, there are many tools that we can share with the Caribbean, with the Western Indian Ocean. And this is really some rich exchange and cooperation. So I will finish my presentation by presenting you a key project in which we are involved. We are the coordinator of this Interreg Med project called MPA Networks. And this is really, the Interreg tool is really key in terms of cooperation in the Mediterranean. This project was really, the key topic was about supporting MPA effectiveness through networks in the Mediterranean with 9 partners in different countries of the Med. The main activities of the project were to develop trainings, a working group, tools based on pilot MPA activities, but also experience sharing. And we are now in the phase of policy support at different levels, from the local to the national, to the regional, to the international level. And this project was dealing with key topics about financing of MPA mobile species like marine turtles and small-scale fisheries management also in MPAs. Here are a snapshot of the main outputs of this project with 8 pilot action in 7 countries, 3 thematic working groups, some direct peer-to-peer, so support between MPAs, regular training program as well, this MPA forum that I just mentioned, and the support to the strengthening and or creation of new networks of MPA managers at national and sub-regional level, and this will be presented after. And we are now developing a policy brief on those key topics related to the management of MPAs. Here is just a map to show you within this Interreg project the different network, the Spanish network of MPAs, the Pelagos area where we had some activities between some MPAs, the Adriatic with Adrian Pan, and the Croatian National MPA network. This will be presented after, and thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Ms. Romani, for your presentation, which wraps up the first panel discussion of today's event. And I'm extremely happy because I think that following the intervention so far, we have all come to agree that better ocean governance can only be achieved through consolidated and coordinated work through close cooperation and partnerships. So I think this is the main takeaway of our first panel discussion for today. And just to reply to some questions from the audience that have been communicated bilaterally. So the event is indeed recorded, and the recording will be made available tomorrow on the website of EBCD. And then the presentations will also be made available tomorrow following the confirmation of our speakers, of course. For further questions regarding our excellent set of speakers for today, you can use the Q&As box of the platform, which, if not directly visible, it might just require for you to click on the 3 dots button that should appear at the right-hand side of your screen. On this note, I'm very happy moving on to the following session of today's event to welcome some key best practices from the ground and also hear more on challenges, but also key opportunities ahead. So I'm delighted to welcome to stage Mr. Renaud Dupuy de la Grandrive. Is this correct? I tried my best.
Sorry for the long name.
Then also we'll be hearing more from Ms. Martina Hervat and also Mr. Jorge Alonso Rodriguez. So starting from Mr. de la Grandrive, you are of course a director of the Marine Direction of Agde Municipality and director of the MPA Côte Gatoise and Natura 2000 marine site that you manage, and also member of the French MPA Forum. So it will be with pleasure to hear from you more on best practices, some examples also from the ground, and what are the main challenges and opportunities there.
Thank you for the invitation. I don't know if you see my PPT. Do you see it?
Not yet. Not
yet? Okay, sorry. I'm going to try to go back. Where I'm about to go. Share my screen. Sorry, because I'm not at the office.
Okay, this is perfect. Thank you very much.
So thank you for the invitation. Just want to talk about some network, an old network, 20 years old network, and as you can see on the figure, this is also a human network. I want to begin with that because, as Mr. Bijou said, this I think the most important of the things at the beginning. All the network is not presented there. Of course, we are more than 100, but this is the beginning of this network. So it is an informal network. It's not an institution one. It deals with exchanges and the linking MPA managers together, partly from mainly France, but also to overseas territories. And the aim is to create a technical platform, sometimes strategical one also, but more technical, for discussing and capitalizing. And as you said, from the real life, could we say, real life for MPAs on the ground, of MPAs and managers. It has been launched 20 years ago in 2001 with a very, very small group of 3 MPAs. It's not a joke, that's a reality. And we wanted to share this our positions in order to improve the knowledge of stakeholders. As you can see, the link with the stakeholders is very important at the very beginning, but also to discuss and capitalize on what we want or what we do on the field, of course, and of course on the basic of these discussions. So we have created an executive committee, and then we have some focuses on the technical and strategical exchanges, but also on the base of a membership charter, not so complicated, but there is a charter, and but linked also with other initiatives like Ministry of the Environment, agencies, international networks like METPAN, and that's the reality also. One thing is important, it is a voluntary forum. It is not something which is imposed to our members. It is informal, but it is well organized. There is an executive committee, there is a president. It has been supported, it is supported by the French Biodiversity Office with a half job position. It was a full position some years ago, now it's a half job. It will be the discussion we have on the way. There is a charter, as I said, and some internal rules. For example, you can't join the network if you are not on the ground, a manager, and I could say an efficient MPA. That means some MPAs that has gone on the way for managing the territories. With this map, you can see that we are in the mainland also, of course, but not only. We have many kinds of MPAs, natural thousand sites, national parks, natural reserves, marine natural parks, new kind of MPAs in France since the 2000 years, public maritime, and so on. As you can see on this figure, it has been improving since the beginning, of course. And now we are about 70 managers, members of this forum, and that represent from 100 MPAs, because now in some marine natural parks managed by the French Agency Biodiversity, French office now, Biodiversity, it can be, you can find several Natura 2000 sites. So in all, you can find something about 500 French MPAs in France. It represents something like 30% of the coast, and as we were talking about the strict zone, something like 4.5% of the zones. So it's not very big, but it's bigger than in other countries. So just to say, as you have understood, you can have some eco-region represented, the Mediterranean, of course, but the Pacific and Indian Ocean. What is important and so interesting, I think, it is that members can be directors, but also field officers, rangers too, project managers, and so on. There is no you can be inside this network without even if you are a director or a ranger. But I think that's interesting because it's the whole staff of the MPAs that are represented. And what has been done, just really quickly, some technical workshops, some guidance documents. We are linked with other national and international exchanges. For example, we participate to impact conferences, most of the time with MedPan, may I say. And we made some studies and monitoring in some MPAs. And we participate to national committees in France also, of course, because this is a French water. We have 3 annual meetings, 2 regionals in the Atlantic way and the Mediterranean one, and a national one. And as you can see on this figure, as I mentioned, we are linked with other sub-regional networks and with other networks of national interest, like Réserve Naturelle de France, Natural Reserve of France, or the Federation of Regional Parks and Natural Parks. And on the international way with MedPan, as I said, transatlantic one, Indian Ocean. For example, Indian Ocean, may I say, if you want some examples very concrete, we have managed through this network, our network, and this through this new network to exchange rangers from the island of the La Réunion, as Mr. Bidiou said. They are coming to in summer for 1 week at all, and they are sharing the missions in the MPA I am managed in Agde, south of France, during all this week. That is the reality and I think the real life of the MPA inside a network. Next step, we are trying to find ways to coordinate the network, because as there are many MPAs now, it has been changing since, of course, 20 years ago, and we are going to try to find link with other networks, with French Biodiversity Office also, because it has been changing as a new institution in France. And in order to have a common vision of the managers and to promote new ideas, particularly at the strategic level, because now, as you know, we are on the ground, but we are also in the domain of the strategic, and the European Commission is one of it, and we hope maybe that we can find solutions to integrate some European solutions to deal with that topic. And thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you very much. And of course, we're all here for finding the solutions. But I would like to comment that your presentation has been extremely insightful. And specifically, I would like to thank you very much for highlighting the inter alia, the fundamental human dimension of MPA's networks. So on this note, I would like to provide the floor then to Ms. Martina Hervat, who is the Senior Expert Advisor for Nature Conservation at the Brijuni National Park, which is part of the Croatian MPA network. Previously, of course, Ms. Hervat was a chief technologist at Cromaris, a company specialized in the processing of Mediterranean fish, and also has served as the head of expertise division of the Kamenjak Public Institution. So on this note, I think it would be very interesting to also hear from you on some best practices from the Croatian MPA's network.
Thank you. Thank you. I'm really pleased to be here. Thank you for inviting me. Today, I'm going to talk about our experience in a wonderful project, an Interreg project MPA Networks, previously mentioned and introduced by Mrs. Romani. Just to summarize what was said before, it's not only about hitting the numbers. We know that now we have more tangible biodiversity goals, and this is really useful in achieving really efficient nature conservation. However, we know that we need to do more in the field in marine protected areas, and we need to reinforce the managers. Thus, in this project, we work on regular training programs, on peer-to-peer exchanges. We had some really useful gathering, and we work on networking on different levels, so national, sub-regional, and regional, with some great experience with the Spanish network, Croatian, an emerging network, Italian and French in the Pelagos area, and the networking in the Adriatic and the Ionian. Why the focus on networks? We believe that MPA managers are the cornerstone of marine and coastal biodiversity protection. Well-managed MPAs are good examples on how to protect biodiversity and adapt to the global climate change. They can also support the policy as a bottom-up approach and give really good recommendation to support policy making and at international, European, and national level. In Croatia, we have a really big coast with many levels of protection. We have 17 designated protected areas by Croatian nature protection law. We have 247 designated Natura 2000 sites that encompass 16% of the coastal sea. Plus, there is one part of ecological and fishery protection zone that is also, let's say, giving some really good ecological benefits. That makes some 9.4% of protection of the sea under national jurisdiction. However, there are some other areas that can benefit protection, like the fishery restricted area Pomapit, and in total it's about 12% of sea protection in Croatia. The protection is carried out by 15 institutions that manage protected areas and Natura 2000 areas at local, regional, and national level. We had a chance and we took it in the framework of MPA Networks project with the help, with the really great help of MedPan and other colleagues, other project partners. We started together in the time of COVID. We had a meeting under the mask and start talking about challenges. We are practitioners at a different level. However, we all share the same or similar challenges. Some of them are the focus of MPAs to tourism, lack of knowledge of the state of the ecosystem components. We need more monitoring and more research. We saw that we see a weakness of our law, overlapping of regulation and jurisdictions. We lack funding, we need more protection, and we started to talk about how to boost the cooperation. Thus, we started to have in COVID time many online exchanges with thematic meeting dedicated to some really emerging problems like climate change, adaptation, monitoring of seagrasses, but also some soft, I would say, topics like communication, like environmental education, and so on. And we also managed to organize 2 trainings and to make cooperation with other Interreg projects like MPA Engage that focus on climate problematics. And last year, unfortunately, it was only last year, so 20 years after the French Forum, but I think it was a great thing that we managed to gather all the practitioners, all the MPA managers, so 15 institutions, plus the Ministry of Economy and Sustainable Development, and we signed a memorandum of cooperation. As said, it was boosted by MedPan because we got the initial data from MedPan and we know what were the problems and the challenges. And now we are going further with capitalizing our knowledge. We are preparing next month today's national conference and where we will share our knowledge and we will try to present our findings and project findings at the policy level.
And Martina,
As a
I'm sorry
side
to
event,
interrupt,
yes.
but I think that the presentation has not been shared. So if you would like to make this available, if I remember correctly, there was a presentation as well to
Yes.
accompany your intervention. So perhaps we can put this on as you continue with your intervention.
Okay, sorry. Can you see it now?
Yes.
Okay.
And
So
of course,
next,
this is something that we will make sure to share on our website following the event.
thank you. And next month, as a side event at the National Capitalization event in Zagreb, we will have a hybrid event about the challenges in the Adriatic Ionian Sea with practitioners from not only from Croatia, but Slovenia, our colleagues and our friends from Italy, Montenegro, Albania, and Greece. So we're really looking forward to this event, to exchange the results and really to engage the communities. So we are really grateful about this project because it was a chance that we really took. Of course, there are some challenges. There are some concerns how to continue with the network after the life of the project that is ending quite soon. However, we really try and give our best to show the benefits of this human network. I'm pretty sure that we will continue the collaboration with some new challenges, some new tasks and activities. So thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Ms. Hervat, for your intervention and specifically for highlighting how throughout their work, MPA network managers are at the core of tackling the biodiversity, but also climate crisis, and then specifically how they can best support policymakers at various levels. Then our next speaker of today is Mr. Jorge Alonso Rodriguez, who will be speaking on behalf of the Spanish MPA network, RAMPE. Mr. Jorge Alonso Rodriguez is also the head of the MPA unit at the Spanish Ministry for Ecological Transition and Demographic Challenge, which is responsible for the declaration and management of MPAs. So without further ado, Mr. Alonso Rodriguez, the floor is yours.
I am mute. Am I?
We can hear you very well.
Okay. Sorry, and you can see my screen as well?
Yes, this is great.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
So good afternoon to everybody, and thank you for inviting me to present the state of the play regarding the network of marine protected area in Spain. By the way, yes, I'm Jorge Alonso. I work for the Ministry for Ecological Transition at Spain, and so let me start my presentation with a brief reference to the legal framework, specifically focusing on MPAs. In Spain, the law on natural heritage and biodiversity is the national framework to protect biodiversity. It is the law which transposes the nature directives, Habitat and Bird Directive, and it is considered as basic legislations. This means that in addition to this law, regional governments can enact rules to further legislate on biodiversity protection to improve the protection regime. So this law sets and defines the different categories of protected areas that can be used by regional administration, by public administrations to implement their competencies. Thus, there are 4 different figures that can be found in our marine territory. First of all, we have the marine protected area figure, which are defined as natural sites designated for the protection of ecosystems, communities, or biological and geological elements of the marine environment. According to the Spanish law, the marine protected areas are not a general reference to protected areas that normally occur in the sea, but they have its proper legal status, its proper legal regime. No? And in Spain, we have so far 2 sites which have been assigned with this figure. We have the Cachucho in the Atlantic Sea, and we have the Cetacean Migration Corridor, which has been approved a couple of years ago, in 2018. Then we have the Natura 2000 sites. We have more than 260 sites of Natura 2000 in the marine environment, and they represent around the 8% of the Spanish marine area, marine surface. Then we have other sites, other figures, such as the natural park, national parks. Here we can find specifically 2 different national parks which are marine. We have the one in the Mediterranean, that is Archipelago Cabrera, and these figures are used so far by regional governments and have not been applied from the central government. And finally, we have also the marine protected area that are included in the international networks. For instance, all the MPAs which are included in this PAMI list. And besides these figures which focus mainly on protection on biodiversity, we have finally another one, which is marine reserves, which pursue objectives that are more related to the conservation of fisheries resources. So we have some synergies, but specifically they do not focus on marine biodiversity conservation. And finally, regarding the declaration and regarding the competence distribution in Spain, the proper law on natural heritage indicates that the competence to protect marine biodiversity, including also the Marine Protection Area Declaration and Management, belongs normally to central government. And this central government applies this competence through the Ministry for Ecological Transitions. But there are some cases in which when there is a proven ecological continuity between the marine environment and the protected terrestrial area, in which in these cases the competence to protect biodiversity and protect MPAs will belong to regional governments. So after this brief reference to the legal framework, this picture shows the map of the different sites, different MPAs which are managed from the central government, from the ministry. And let me now highlight some facts. This picture shows around 100 sites that are the sites which are managed from the ministry, and they represent around 96% of the marine protected surface that we have so far in Spain. So the regional governments, the comunidades autónomas, manage a lot of sites, 160 sites that they do not appear on the picture, but they are small. They are smaller and they are very coastal, and they represent less than 4% of the marine. They contribute with less than 4% of the whole marine protected area we have in Spain. And the last fact I want to highlight is that there has been a big improvement and a big boost of the development of marine protection in Spain. In the last 10 years, we have passed from protecting less than 1% in 2014 to the current 12%, in which we are now located. So in Spain, we can say that we have achieved the Aichi target, but with some buts, with some not completely, because as you know, Aichi target is composed by qualitative and quantitative targets. The qualitative target has been achieved. We have overcome the 10% set by Aichi target, but still Aichi target talks also about effectiveness, and this is, as you may understand, the main challenge we have ahead of us in the Spanish administration. For us, we have it is clear that the main challenge regarding the marine protected area refer to achieve effectiveness in order to avoid to have a network of paper parks or wasted parks. So regarding the effective protection, we have several challenges ahead of us. First of all, it is the approval of management plans, because to date, only 1/3 of the marine protected areas managed from the state have a management plan. And we have a roadmap in front of us, and we are aiming to approve all the management plans of all these 100 sites in the coming 4 years. And all of these management plans will be done through a participatory process. They will be try to include and involve all the stakeholders, all public administration and sectors which have interest in these sites, in these marine protected areas. And once approved these management plans, the next step is to implement them. No? And the implementation of management plans implies mainly two things. First of all, we have to ensure an effective surveillance. We have to be sure that the measures and the regulations included in the management plan is applied. And for this, in Spain, we have now doing big efforts in order to have staff, field staff on the different MPAs. And of course, we have to do monitoring, because monitoring is a key issue to check whether the conservation objectives defined in the management plans are being achieved. And finally, in addition to the management plan, we have this Article 6 of Habitat Directive that creates a framework of protection, because most of the activities and the plans and projects that are being carried out in these sites, in these marine protected areas, are subject to whether authorization or whether an environmental assessment. So with this together, these two tools, instruments, we ensure that the protection is effective. And the other thing I want to say is, of course, we are on the way. We are working to achieve the 30% of protection that was set by the EU strategy for biodiversity by 2013. This is an objective that was already approved and considered by the Spanish government in January since 2020. And so now we are working on increasing and developing and growing our network of MPAs, but we are doing it we are trying to do it in a coherent way, in order to have a real coherent network of MPAs that really is able to fulfill with these all the targets and all the challenges that have to be done. And yes, regarding this objective of creating a coherent network of MPA, I want to refer to one tool that is the RAMPE, the legal creation of this network of marine protected area. And the work we are doing so far, that is to elaborate and approve a master plan to define the working or the rules of procedure of this network. So this network, this RAMPE, was actually approved and created by the law on marine protection. That is a law that was created to transpose the Marine Strategic Framework Directive. And so this RAMPE is defined to include all the MPAs that are located in Spanish marine environment. It also includes the regulatory framework and the system of relationships. The objectives of this RAMPE are clear. No? It's to ensure the conservation, to protect and conserve the areas that best represent the distribution range of species, habitat, and processes, and also to promote and enhance the connectivity of all these MPAs, and finally also to contribute to constitute the contribution to all the networks, the European and pan-European networks that are created. And so we are, as I have said, we are now working on this master plan, no? to define some this master plan will be the guidelines in order to achieve all these objectives that need to be applied and need to be achieved. And so we have started a participatory process to define this master plan. The master plan is now under legislative procedure. We are now, it is now subject to environmental strategic assessment, and we hopefully expect to have this master plan approved by the end of this year. This master plan, in this slide, you can see the content, the general content this master plan, and it will include objectives and strategic objectives, operational objectives, and some actions linked to achieve these objectives. You can check the details on this email. That is a draft. This is the draft that was subjected to public information. But yeah, to refer just quickly to the content of this, to the content of the objectives of this master plan. This master plan will include some objectives and actions in order to achieve coherence, effective protection. There are also objectives linked to governance, capacity building, monitoring, financing, awareness. So there's a whole packet of block of actions in order to be able to achieve to those goals. So this is what I wanted to present today. So far we are, as you know, we have the whole picture with all the MPAs, but now we have to work in a more coherent and a more coordinated way in order to create a network and not only live like little island to leave all these sites work lonely with this. With this need to coordination, with this necessity to coordinate in order to work finally and as a network. So that will be all from my side. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Alonso Rodriguez. This has been extremely useful. So thank you very much for presenting us with the Spanish example and best practices. Thank you for guiding us through. And of course, as you mentioned, the key importance of management towards fully achieving effectiveness, and of course also for proper implementation. So thank you very much to all previous speakers concerning this part of the event. And then moving ahead, we have a second panel discussion on coordinating protection networks of MPAs as key allies. And for that, I'm delighted to welcome to the floor MEP Ms. Catherine Chabot, also Dr. Puri Canals, who is the technical coordinator of the EU Ocean Governance Project and also MedPan president. And last but not least, Mr. Joe Appiot, coordinator for Marine, Coastal and Island Biodiversity, working at the Secretariat of CBD, so the Convention for Biological Diversity. Starting with perhaps MEP Ms. Chabot, I think that with your Ms. Chabot, with your key experience and passion about the ocean, you're extremely best suited to drive this vision forward. So I would like to give you the floor then to kickstart the second panel discussion.
Thank you very much, Ilias, and good afternoon to everyone. Many thanks for this event that I'm happy to co-host with my dear colleague, Stéphane Bijoux, who told me to express his regret not to be with us and his deep interest on this topic. But I think you probably hear in his messages about this his interest. First of all, I would like to quickly present myself, but because I'm an MEP, as you said, but I'm also I was a former sailor involved since about 20 years on ocean conservation and to promote a sustainable future with the ocean. And as a member of the European Parliament, I push all ocean issues and a more integrated approach of their implementation. But I'm also the co-founder of the Ocean and Climate Platform and the initiator of the call for the ocean to be recognized as a global common at UN level. I was also a member of the French Agency for Marine Protected Areas since its creation in 2007 to 2014. So I have followed the creation of several marine parks in France. Since the beginning, I promote the model of governance of our MPAs, the management committee that put all the stakeholders around the table, scientists, local authorities, economic actors, NGOs, institutions, because I fully believe on the co-building. Today, I still believe on this model, but I realize the limits and I realize the huge challenges for the MPA's manager to achieve conservation objectives. As it has been highlighted last week on the vote to ban bottom trawling in the parliament, people need to understand what protected means. Many people discovered last week on this occasion that there were different types of marine protected areas which had different protection objectives, and that one could continue to practice activities in these areas. So there was a lot of misunderstanding, which leads me to think that we have a lot of educational work to do. And this is also a message for the managers of marine protected areas. We must understand and share different considerations. What are these ecosystems that we have to protect? From what impacts we want to protect them? What messages to pass to the actors who have the power to participate in reducing these impacts and participate or not to the management? I think of waste managers, water managers, economic actors, and also citizens. What is the regeneration capacity of these ecosystems? What are the good practices that have to be developed, etc.? I think we are at a turning point. We have created marine protected areas. We are going to create others with this goal 30 by 30. We know that we must strengthen the capacity for regeneration, therefore create strict or strong protection areas. We must decide the debate. And therefore, it is essential in this turning point to share the feedback as it has begun. And in that way, MedPan has a lot to share. So I believe very much in networking to improve the management of NPAs. But I also think that linking actors is consistent with the connectivity of marine and coastal ecosystems. Finally, the ecosystem approach must also be one of the animation of MPAs. And I agree with the notion of solidarity underlined by Stéphane Bijoux or Marie Romani and others, or by the fundamental human dimension, Elias, you mentioned, and others also. Of course, in the long run, I support this great idea of the blue belt. It should help to remove some of the obstacles to the creation of certain MPAs, and it will allow us to anticipate the creation of marine protected areas in the high seas as well, within the framework of the future COP BBNJ, hoping that we will quickly reach a treaty. For example, I think if we don't achieve the project of MPAs in Southern Ocean, we could try to promote the idea in the Blue Belt and in the framework of the COP BBNJ, just an idea. Now, I look forward to hearing from Pluricanals, Andre Aprayat, on this topic of coordinating marine protected area networks. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ms. Szabó, for underlining inter alia the key role of education, the ecosystem-based approach. And as you mentioned, of course, it's essential to build on a common understanding and strategically define our vision in close collaboration with MPA network managers. So I'm very happy to welcome to the scene as well Dr. Pluricanals, who is the president of MedPan and promotes MPA networks across the Atlantic and Southeast Asia as technical coordinator of the EU Ocean Governance Project. So Dr. Canals, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Elias. I'm gonna try to share my presentation. Hopefully it will work well. Yes, please let me know if you can see it well.
Yes, this is great, thank you.
And the second as well?
Yes.
Yeah, okay. So I'm really glad to participate today in this session and to do it just after you heard many different examples of networking between managers of marine protected areas at different levels, nationally, but also regionally. And also there has been a lot of focus on the importance of management. And I think for me, this is the key message, because this is what remains at the end. And all what we are doing at the end is just to have better and more effective management. So in this process to support management of marine protected areas, we have seen this regional activity of MedPan, which is quite well recognized. But I think it's also very interesting, since we have only one ocean, we don't have several oceans, we have only one, everything is connected. So also people working in the support of managers of MPAs should be connected to do a better job. So what I'm going to present today very briefly is the activity of a European Union project, which is called Ocean Governance. And this project has its main objective to increase the EU role as a global actor in international ocean governance by fostering this regional and international cooperation that is relevant for protection of marine and coastal ecosystems. So this sounds as something very complex, very theoretical, but in the practice, it is done low at the level of marine protected areas and with a special focus on management and cooperation between actors and between countries to really improve this management capacity. So the project has two regional target areas, the Atlantic and the Southeast Asia, and it has a duration of 4 years, and it will end next year in December 2023. We have 4 different components, and I'm going to refer mainly to the second one, because it's the one that is targeting specifically the networks of managers of MPAs. The first one is related to restoration, and we have 3 different examples of restoration with local actors and local communities in Southeast Asia, in Indonesia, Philippines, and Malaysia. The second one is about networking between managers and between networks of managers. The third one is connecting these 2 geographic areas, the Atlantic and the Southeast Asia. And the fourth one is enhancing and improving the cooperation at regional level in Southeast Asia. So as I said, I will refer to this second component because in fact, this is in a certain manner the heritage of a previous EU project that had two different phases from 2016 and 2017, and then 2018, 2019. And this project was called Transatlantic MPA Network Project. So the idea was to promote cooperation between managers of MPAs in countries and territories around the Atlantic and promote the exchange and sharing of best practices, targeting always this objective of good management. And I think it's very interesting to mention this, even if it is very briefly, because the origin of this new transatlantic approach that was not only targeting bilateral cooperation between European Union and specific countries at the other side or in the Africa, but it was targeting the overall space of the Atlantic. And this was a request from the European Parliament, a request, I think, if I'm not wrong, from 2015, asking the Commission to start creating pilot projects addressing this transatlantic cooperation, this transatlantic dialogue. So a first example was taking advantage of marine protected areas. And in this context, now the ocean governance is taking advantage of all this previous experience and also continue highlighting the role of MPA managers and also promoting the sharing of problems and solutions at both sides. So one of the things we have been working from the past and now we are updating is a scoping study of the current system of marine protected areas in the Atlantic. And let me just give you a figure. We identify the designation, not necessarily the good management, but the designation of 14,500 marine and coastal protected areas, designated by more than 450 different ways. So can you imagine the difficulties, but also the diversity? And it's nice to, when we talk about biological diversity, to also pay attention to the human diversity, the diversity in which humans, we take care of the marine environment. So we are now improving the mapping and doing a more lower scale of this mapping that will be, in fact, it's the first example in which we have a common map for all the actors in the Atlantic working on marine protected areas. Also from this transatlantic previous project, we identify and we create 3 specific areas of sharing between MPAs and between networks of MPAs. So between MPA managers, we were addressing 2 technical topics, very interesting. I will not develop today, but I just mentioned. One is on coastal resilience and how the managers of MPA are dealing with those rapid changes, and they just shared many different experiences, some of them related to climate change, but others just the way we develop activities in the coast, for instance, tourism. how we can be resilient in front of those changes. And the other exchanges were around how the managers address the marine mammals protection in their management plans. And marine mammals are just an example of migratory species, mobile species, which is always a challenge because maybe an MPA includes, but then they move to another MPA. So if there is no cooperation, it's very difficult then to really take care of those group of mobile species. So those are just those examples. And the third one was when we call twinning. In fact, they are not twinnings, they are partnerships because they are not only two actors, but several. But this twinning was a cooperation and a common strategy between MPA networks of managers in the Atlantic region. So in the map, you can see the first partners we had in the past, but now we have many more. So you can see here the enlargement of the 3 twinning projects, plus the 3 restoration sites in Southeast Asia. So we are addressing a larger geographical area. During the first part of the transatlantic, we had as a pilot examples 4 regional networks. Some of them have been quite active in the session today. So it's the case of MEDPAN in the Mediterranean, but we had also CANPAM in the Caribbean, NAMPAM in North America, and RAMPAO in West Africa. And we wanted to explore the possibilities and the convenience of the regional networks working in cooperation with at national scale. So we include 2 national partners, the French Biodiversity Agency and the Fundación Biodiversidad. Today, we also heard about examples of networking in these 2 countries. So we identify what can be a good relationship and a good support from the regional dimension to the national one. And in fact, this is also part now of the Interreg project that MEDPAN presented, this cooperation at different scales. So we were exploring this. But now we have many more partners. We have OSPAR, we have HELCOM, those are conventions in the Northeast Atlantic, in the Baltic. We have the Marine and Coastal Group of Red Parques in Latin America, the Patagonian Forum in the Southwest, the Red Gulf, which is very interesting because thanks to the marine protected areas, there is a real cooperation on the ground between countries that had diplomatic difficulties, such the US and Cuba. And there's also Mexico playing a connecting role here. And this is a very nice example. Or recently, going behind the Atlantic, we have the CIMAR corridor in the East Tropical Pacific, composed of MPAs from Galapagos to Malpelo to Coiba in Galapagos, Ecuador, Colombia, Panama, and also Coco Island in Costa Rica. They are very interested in joining the twinning because these examples about experiencing of cooperation between managers at regional level are really useful. So we are very glad to go beyond the borders. And we have also new national partners, the NOAA in the US, the CONAMI in Mexico, Colombia, Dominican Republic, Uruguay, and Senegal. So this allows us to really explore many different situations in which this cooperation, national, regional, can make sense. And what is more important, have a common vision for international connection with the key things that are happening today and the international arena for MPAs. We have 4 axes of activity. 2 of them are more technical, sharing information, knowledge, and tools, and building the network capacity. And the other 2 are more strategic. Let's say how we, as networks, national or regional, we support in the implementation of the policies. This is more an advocacy role, or how we can work together to improve the mobilization of financing resources for networks and for management of MPAs. So we have many different examples. I will not enter into the detail, but for instance, we have activities addressing technical aspects. Now, in a few weeks, we will start a training on management effectiveness for MPAs. This will be done only in Spanish, this example, but it will include many different countries of Latin America and Spain. We are addressing topics, for instance, on marine turtle protection and taking advantage of regional experiences such as the one of MEDPAN and many others. We are also supporting the partners' activity. Is the case, for instance, of the Mediterranean Forum that my colleague Marie mentioned previously. We were also present there, connecting this regional dimension of the Mediterranean with the international one. And we are also supporting the structure of our partners. For instance, the picture you see here in the left is a meeting last week in Senegal, working with RANPAO, the network in West Africa, that has huge challenges now, that has a lot of requests to support managers. And from the ocean governance, we really want to help them to be a strong network as we can have now in the Mediterranean. And in terms of policy, we have been very active in the past, for instance, at the International Marine Protected Areas Congress in Chile. And now we are preparing our new inputs for the Impact 5 in Vancouver in February. And especially, we have been active supporting activities at the CBD, participating in the post-2020 process, or for instance, being present at the Ocean Conference, at the UN Ocean Conference in New York. Now we are also preparing our participation at the next conference in June in Lisbon. So from here, at the financial level, we have been exploring, and you know, I think this is an important message to be understood. Until now, very few donors were interested in funding networking activities. And this was a very difficult issue because that means that the role of the networks of managers was not well understood. So thanks to those transatlantic exchanges and the regional activity of the different networks, today this is starting to change. So for instance, MedPan is having now a GEF project together with the MedFund that includes, by one side, funds for the MedFund, for the trust fund, but also funds for capacity building through the network, through MedPan. So from this model, we thought that we could scale up the dimension of attracting donors to this kind of cooperation with networks, but also with conservation trust funds as a model of cooperation that can be applied not only in the Mediterranean, but everywhere in the world. So during the IUCN World Conservation Congress in Marseille, we launched an initiative that is called Global Alliance for Marine Protection, that joins networks of managers of MPAs and conservation trust funds and networks of conservation trust funds. And the idea is to provide a very solid context to donors to provide funds through the conservation trust funds, through the networks, but finally to be invested on management. And it's a way to give credibility. Technical credibility is given by the networks that know very well the MPAs at local level, but the financial management is given credibility by the trust funds. So this is a very interesting model of cooperation. And just let me mention, to finalize my presentation, that in the context of the ocean governance, there are these components in Southeast Asia. And as networks of managers, we want to take advantage of those components to also connect with networks in this region and support networks in this region. So for instance, we had some activities promoting those exchanges of experiences. Unfortunately, until now, they were only virtual. We hope that from now, we can also have some physical events there. And we had the opportunity to share experiences from networking, but also technical experiences of cooperation between countries. The example, for instance, of the Pelago Sanctuary in the Mediterranean, in which 3 countries work together for the protection of this group of species, can be very interesting in the Coral Triangle area in Southeast Asia. And we are also supporting the establishment of new networks, for instance, working with regional institutions such as the Asian Center for Biodiversity or the Coral Triangle Initiative, that they are also having working groups on marine protected areas or already networks. And this is a great platform to really take advantage of experiences in Mediterranean, in the Atlantic, in the Pacific. So finally, we are connecting many different dimensions of networking, considering the diversity of models, because every network has to respond to the geographic and cultural context, but that have a lot of commonalities. And probably the most common aspects is that at the end, we are key actors to support the implementation of the targets of the CBD, the Biological Diversity Convention, or the Migratory Species Convention. So we can really play a role connecting the ground level and the international and regional and national policies. So this is, for me, the basis of this idea of a blue belt. So in fact, what means a blue belt for us? So it means a huge community of actors that are that they have the credibility because they really know how the management is going, what are the critical points for the managers to implement the policies, but at the same time brings the voice, the knowledge of the managers in international events and provides this connection that is substantially important if we really want to go faster in the implementation of those targets. So we are really happy that the European Parliament allows us to share all these messages. And as just to anticipate, this is just the first event of a series of 3. And in the next 2, you will hear more details about the specific contribution of the ocean governance with the networks of the twinning of marine protected areas managers and the overall ocean governance to contribute to the idea of this blue belt. So thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Dr. Canals, for your presentation, and this has been a very informative set of remarks. And thank you very much then for presenting us with the project's mission, but also with the key updates on where we stand. So, aware of the time constraint, I would like to seamlessly transition to our next speaker, who is Mr. Joe Appiott, coordinating the work on marine, coastal, and island biodiversity at the Secretariat of the Convention on Biological Diversity, shortly for CBD. So, Mr. Appiott, thank you very much for joining us today, and the floor is yours then.
Thank you so much, and thanks for to the organizers for inviting us to this useful discussion. My name is Joe Appiott. I'm the coordinator of the work at the CBD Secretariat on marine, coastal, and island biodiversity, and it's my pleasure just to give some brief remarks and updates on the relevance and the linkages of the issues being discussed here to global biodiversity goals, and here in particular, linkages to important work underway at the CBD on the development of the post-2020 global biodiversity framework. So, as many of you know, and I think it's been referenced in some of the previous remarks, much of the focus of the global community, and in particular of our CBD parties and the CBD Secretariat, has been on the Aichi biodiversity targets over the 2010 to 2020 period. These were time-bound targets that focus on different aspects of conservation, sustainable use of biodiversity, and of course have different issues of relevance to marine and coastal biodiversity, and of course cooperation across regions. Now, this one of the more prominent. Before I go to there, just to highlight that we also have seen very clearly that the work on the Aichi biodiversity targets and the development of the Aichi targets was also highly informative to the development of the Sustainable Development Goals of the SDGs. And in fact, we see many of the same elements of the Aichi targets reflected quite clearly in the Sustainable Development Goals. So here, very illustrative of the underlying importance of biodiversity and the foundational importance of biodiversity to broader sustainable development objectives. Now, there's been a lot of discussion on Aichi Biodiversity Target 11, and I think that's obviously of high relevance to our discussions here, much of which is focusing on marine protected areas. And that target was highly effective in catalyzing action towards not only increasing the coverage of marine protected areas, but also to instilling and emphasizing the importance of qualitative elements, as has been mentioned, I think, by a number of other speakers. In addition, it brought in and embedded this concept of other effective area-based conservation measures, or OECMs, which has become a very powerful tool to better understand and improve the conservation outcomes of measures that are not considered protected areas, but nonetheless can and often do deliver biodiversity benefits. We've seen also in SDG 14 that actually, in particular with respect to marine protected areas and area-based conservation, how SDG 14.5 really kind of built on the Aichi biodiversity target 11 and brought this to a bit of perhaps a higher profile and again embedding it in the broader sustainable development paradigm through the SDGs. But unfortunately, as we arrived to the end period of the Aichi biodiversity targets, we saw clearly that we did not fully achieve any of the Aichi targets, unfortunately. There were quite a lot of successes, quite a lot of really powerful partnerships and implementation work that was catalyzed. There was progress in many areas, and of course, we did see the very ambitious and rapid growth of marine protected area coverage, among other developments and areas of progress. But in terms of the broad scope of the Aichi targets, there was not a single Aichi target that was fully achieved with respect to all of its elements. So all of the lessons and the work to achieve or to try to achieve the Aichi targets are now focused on we're focused on learning from those lessons in the development of this new post-2020 global biodiversity framework. So this is a new framework that's presently being negotiated and developed under the CBD by parties. It's a party-led process, of course, government-led process. And this will be submitted for adoption at CBD COP15, which is currently planned for the third quarter of this year. This framework has outcome-oriented goals and action-oriented targets. So it's a bit different than the Aichi targets, whereas the Aichi targets were a bit of a mix of outcomes and actions. The post-2020 framework is structured in a way that there's longer-term goals that what we want to see in terms of the status of ecosystems and biodiversity, and action-oriented targets focused on what we need to do to actually arrive to those goals. At the same time, there are also concurrent discussions on indicators for the framework. Now, this is in contrast to the work on the Aichi targets, in which the indicators were developed quite some time after the adoption of the Aichi targets. So conversely here, there's also concurrent work going on indicators for the post-2020 framework, but that work will likely continue, perhaps even after the adoption of the post-2020 framework, the work on elaborating and providing further detail and clarity on indicators. Now, what's important to note about the post-2020 framework is that it's a global framework. It's not intended to be something that will sit only within the CBD and be a CBD framework and a CBD area of focus, but actually something that speaks to many different processes. I mean, of course, we have to keep in mind that the parties to the CBD are governments that are also parties to many other processes, all these other global conventions, including the UNFCCC and all of these other things. So it's really the intention here is, although it's being developed under the CBD and again by a party-driven process, it will be taken up and embraced and seen as a global framework that will be an important reference point and guidance for many different processes at the global, regional, and national and subnational levels. Now, what is also a bit different and something that we've learned and that our parties have learned from the Aichi targets is that it addresses biodiversity. It addresses biodiversity and the range of services it provides in a much broader way than the Aichi targets did. So it really aims to capture not only the importance of conservation of biodiversity for its own sake, but also linking directly to the services that biodiversity provides for people, livelihoods, nutrition, climate change. And in doing that, the intention is that it will catalyze the engagement and action from sectors and stakeholders and areas that are perhaps not traditionally considered of a biodiversity competence, but are nonetheless essential to biodiversity and that rely on biodiversity and ecosystems. So we can look in particular at some of the relevant draft targets that are currently under development. I should note that these are still draft. These are all still under development. And in fact, even these targets in this text here is perhaps a bit outdated, as we did have a recent negotiation session on the post-2020 framework in Geneva about a month ago. So this is already changed. We don't have an updated version yet, but this is what they were working on, what the parties are working on in Geneva. But here you see, of course, draft target 3, which is the area-based conservation targets, the area-based conservation target, which of which the 30% that this is where this 30 by 30 focus is being highlighted, and this also again speaking to not only protected areas but also other effective area-based conservation measures and addressing many of the same qualitative elements that we saw in Aichi Target 11. But beyond that, it's important to consider that it's important to keep in mind that there are many different targets across the draft framework that are highly relevant to marine conservation, to protected areas and area-based conservation, and to actually achieving our collective goals. This includes draft target 1 on integrated biodiversity inclusive spatial planning, draft target 2 on restoration, draft target 5 on sustainable harvesting, trade, and use of wild species, and draft target 9 on ensuring the benefits benefits of biodiversity through sustainable management of wild species. So here I think we can see obviously the relevance to fisheries and that being of course a primary pressure. Now, just to note also that many who have followed this, who have been sort of somewhat paying attention to this process, have lamented the fact that you don't see marine and often see marine or oceans or the word ocean in the targets. But the intention here is that the targets themselves all of the targets are intended to be broad and applicable to a range of different biomes. So target 3, all of these targets are intended to be applicable across different systems and biomes. So this is why you don't, we may not see those issues there, but nonetheless, we do have ways in which the direct relevance and the elaboration and the clarity of how this applies to ocean areas are being pursued. And this includes both work through the indicators. So the indicators are being looked at with respect to ocean specific indicators when we're looking at targets that have high relevance for the oceans. But also in the CBD Secretariat, we're fully intending to develop and to have a process after the adoption of the framework by which we work with parties and relevant stakeholders to elaborate what the framework means for the oceans and to bring more of that ocean-specific detail with respect to these broader goals and targets. So just to, as I finish up here, just to note that these are global targets that cannot be achieved in an individual country or region. We do see many countries having, set and already working to achieve very ambitious national targets, and this is fantastic, and this is a great development, and of course inspiring to other countries and regions. But we need to remember that these are global objectives that we need to achieve, and in particular in the ocean, the siloed achievement or achievement in an individual area is not going to bring us to our collective objectives. We also have seen that the lack of achievement of the Aichi targets shows two things that it's primarily due to first the many areas lacking the means of implementation and capacity to actually implement their commitments. So in this respect, networks of managers are really a key means to build this collective capacity, to pool resources and knowledge, and to piggyback on successes and strengths towards achieving common goals. So of course, financial resources are essential, but we've seen very clearly that it's not only the money, but also the experiences, the skills, the knowledge, and learning from each other's successes and failures is what's really a really powerful part of building that capacity. The second aspect of what we've learned from the Aichi targets that's really essential in this regard is the need to engage a broader range of stakeholders. One of the things that we've seen very clearly is that many of the drivers of biodiversity loss have not only not decreased, they've in fact increased. So we have robust engagement from the conservation community, from the protected areas community, of course. I mean, this is our core constituency when we're talking about ocean conservation. But we need to do better to engage other groups of stakeholders that rely on and impact the ocean, to have productive dialogues with them that focus on common objectives and achieving a sustainable conservation and sustainable use, so that we all are working together rather than working against each other. And this is again something that we saw in the Aichi targets, that we had inadequate engagement of some of the other users and use sectors that we have to do better in if we really want to reverse global trends in biodiversity loss. And in fact, we see this in many ways. We see MPA managers and MPAs on the ground actually probably doing this better in many cases, and in a practical way than we do at the global level in certain ways. So I think there's a lot to be learned from how different protected areas and managers around the region and around the world, how they're engaging with different users and at different levels, and how those lessons can be transferred to other places and other regions, and even back up to the global level. So that's it for me. And once again, thank you for inviting me to be part of this, and for all of your efforts to help us work towards the achievement of these global goals. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Apiot, for highlighting the lessons learned from the Aichi biodiversity targets, but also for sharing with us the ambition for the post-2020 global biodiversity framework, and specifically, additionally, highlighting once more the key role of collaborative action, but also the crucial contributions of MPA network managers. So before we wrap up today's event, I'm very happy to provide the floor to Mr. Karsten Rasmussen, who is joining us today on behalf of DG Regio as head of unit for Cyprus and Greece. Mr. Rasmussen, can you hear me? Yes?
Yes, I can.
Okay, perfect. Thank you very much for being with us today. So just before we wrap up today's event, I would like to give you the floor for some short reaction then on behalf of DG Regio on the context of today's discussions.
Thank you very much. We are amongst the, I would say, indirect stakeholders in as far as my job is to finance on behalf of, on the technical side, the entire cohesion policy in Greece. So we are everywhere from transport to hospitals and so on. And of course, in this respect, biodiversity is only a small corner of the system, but it is a significant one. The Greek marine territories have been expanded in terms of biodiversity conservation quite radically from around 6% to almost 20% today of all the Greek territorial waters. So we have a much bigger job to do than we used to. So since 2017, it's a sizable territory to deal with. We have quite a significant number of species designated for protection, most of them not doing very well. And we also have a series of marine areas in 10 categories, as you know, the system, several of which are in a very poor state. So there's a significant job to do. We have enough funding, and that is the good part of my message. We are lucky enough in the European Union to put this policy where it belongs, very high up on the agenda. So I would say, first of all, that the cohesion policy is with the member states to finance these actions, not only in the framework of Interreg as we see today, partially, but also the bulk of the financing flowing into the national systems and being a main source of financing for Natura areas in general. In the case of Greece, for marine areas alone, we have more than 21 million lined up for the next funding period, so the next 7 years. And I would consider that is a sufficient amount of funding in order to really make progress. One of the most challenging areas where we need progress soon is on the establishment of specific targets for each area. So we have been for too long working on very broad goals, and we now need to pin it down and to be much more specific about the conservation objectives for each site. And that is a job, well overdue. It is actually also a job missing that is holding back some other investments. To name one, we have an LNG terminal about to be constructed in Alexandropoulou, and the lack of specific conservation objectives has held back the necessary environmental authorizations for that project, which is regrettable. So we hope that money can do something about that. But money is, as we all know, is not everything. We also need good organization, and in this sense, I welcome very much this networking and sort of mutual, systematic mutual inspiration. To give you a little bit of an electroshock in this sense, I think several member states are dealing with capacity issues and maybe even with commitment issues when it comes to walking the talk. We have earmarked for all Natura areas in Greece 100 million euro in the period between 14 and 20, and we're still within the period where we are implementing these funds. And to put this in perspective, out of the 100 million, we have so far managed to pay only 3. So 3 out of 100 million have been spent on the ground, and that is of course not good enough. So while we on one hand are on the one hand, are extremely pleased to continue the financing. We also need to send a very clear signal to several member states that when budgets are there, they need to be spent, they need to be put to good use, and we need to get some results out of the system. So we will be very vigilant in the case of our specific authorities, the ones we deal with, but I think that all my colleagues across the board will be very keen to see sort of an increase of efficiency in the implementation of the funds. 3% after 8 years of implementation is not a result we can be collectively proud of, and that I think has to be the sort of backbone of what we are doing, the bulk of what we're doing in the European Union, and that is also what we need in order to be able to build further international cooperation. I think in Europe we want to be the best. We want to be able to deliver best practice, and we need to ensure that that best practice is then also spread across our own European Union. So to sum up, a lot of good news in terms of funding being available at sufficient levels, but also a mild warning that we need to do better. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Rasmussen. This has been extremely useful to hear from you today on behalf of DG Regent. I think I can speak on behalf of all speakers and attendees on this, as I really appreciate your joining us in this online event today. Just moving very quickly into some quick questions. I think one first question for MEP Ms. Chabot would be the key question right now. So further to the transatlantic dialogue, do you think that the EP would launch a Blue Belt dialogue to follow up and expand the former initiative?
It's a good idea. It's a good idea. I think the European Parliament is a good place to promote a dialogue on this wonderful proposal and project of the Blue Belt. And I think, Elias, it's also a question I will ask you, because we should promote this dialogue together inside the intergroup of climate, biodiversity, and sustainable development. And you know that we are working on a report in the Parliament, a joint report between the DEVE committee and the Environment Committee on the SDGs. And I was very interested by the presentation by the representative of the CBD. And I think this dialogue promotes as probably an example of the implementation of the SDGs should be very interesting, because I think the Blue Belt could be an answer to several goals we have with on the SDGs. So it's a good idea.
Thank you very much, Ms. Chabot, for your reply. And then perhaps a final question that could be addressed to our excellent set of MPA network managers. As I wanted to kindly ask you, what kind of further support would you like to have at the EU level? So that would be an open question for Mr. De La Grandrive, Ms. Hervat, and Mr. Jorge Alonso Rodriguez then.
Hi, yeah. Do you hear me? Okay.
Yes.
Yes, I just want to underline something that has been said by Joe Appiot and Catherine Chabot too. It is because it is one of the keys. One of the keys is to engage broader range with stakeholders, but not only that means with networks, with MPA networks, particularly as Catherine said, in the field of tourism, and more precisely in the field of the nautical tourism, because as you mentioned, the Mediterranean is one of the most important place for tourism in the world, and we have to share more. We have to share experiences and discussions, and to go ahead with other sectors of nautical, sectors of coastal tourism sectors within the cities, within balearic places in the Mediterranean. if I say this, it is but because in the networks, in the MPA networks, sometimes we talk a lot about ecology. Of course, it's our job, but sometimes not enough in other sectors. And the tourism is one of them, and not especially the ecotourism, the tourism, the big tourism, may I say, we find everywhere in the Mediterranean. We need to somewhere to have the solutions. The solutions can only be shared with that sectors in the context of the Mediterranean, for example. And the European Commission can go on this way. For example, there was a special meet program, I think, which was dealing with this, with Italy, France, and METPAN, and was participating too. And I think that is one of the way we have to work with the networks of managers. Thanks.
And Ms. Hervat, perhaps any further input?
Yeah, I agree fully with my colleague Renaud. I would just like to say that we are really, as a Croatian network, just an emerging, a new network, and we are informal. We don't lack enthusiasm, I need to say, and the MPA Networks project was and still is a great opportunity, and we are really thankful for that. However, after the project ends, we are a little bit concerned how the coordination is going on, because we need to go back at our daily tasks. So it would be useful to have the financial support for the coordination of this young network. We believe that we can learn from experienced networks like METPAN, but the challenges in the region are a little bit different from those in the national context. And I fully agree that there are so many challenges with overlapping with other sectors like tourism. We are really concerned about the pressure that we have with making sustainability in our protected areas. And sometimes we more talk about tourism than about nature conservation. However, there is a lack of communication and understanding between different sectors, and it would be really useful to have a more, let's say, professional network. So I believe that we can have the support by strengthening and supporting financially the starting and the development of networks. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ms. Hervat. And Ms. Chabot, I'm aware that you have a very busy agenda of today, and I'm very sorry because it seems that we have been running 13 minutes late already. So I'll be following your lead when it comes to providing the closing remarks of today's event. So let me know if this is okay now for perhaps another speaker to reply before we move to the closing remarks.
Yeah, I can. I will have to leave at in 5 minutes. So,
okay. If there is no pressing,
yeah.
Perhaps then, if there is no pressing reply from speakers, I would provide you the floor then for wrapping up today's event. So then, Ms. Chabot, you have the floor on what would you like the audience then today to take home today.
Thank you very much, Ilias. As closing remarks, I am going to share some of the points I have retained from these the various very inspiring interventions we have heard this afternoon. After recalling the issues at stake, the ocean is more than ever under pressure from climate change and its consequences. Marine and coastal ecosystems are the victims, but are also part of the solution. The ocean, and it's very important for the manager of the MPAs. The ocean is also under pressure from pollution, human activities at sea and on the coast as well, etc. Marine protected areas are developing all over the world, but rather like confetti, islands of ecosystems, more or less large, that men and women take care to protect with more or less means. Protecting means animating communities of actors, measuring progress, monitoring compliance with the framework we have given ourselves. The challenge is enormous. Despite everything, the ocean is still far from being sufficiently protected. As said by Veronica Manfredi, we need to clarify what we allow and what we don't. And to create regeneration zones, we have to limit the most destructive fishing gears. I support the idea to develop offshore wind farms in the MPAs, but at the condition to build them as marine infrastructures with positive impacts, social and environmental, etc. We need to involve stakeholders and citizens, as I said, and as highlighted again by Renaud Dupuy de la Grandrive. I was very interested to follow the experience sharing of the Mediterranean actors, French, Croatian, Spanish experience, and the MedPan network, of course. Through the interventions, I retained two keywords or ideas: human solidarity. One of the greatest challenges is obviously the creation of an international community of ocean managers. And finally, not only of marine protected areas, a network of men and women as much as a network of pieces of ocean. I note in passing that this desire to create networks comes from the managers themselves, not from the authorities. So the need is felt by those who are on the ground. And from this point of view, I find these very concrete initiatives all the more interesting and relevant and must be supported. As we have heard, several management models exist. So perhaps we should not try to define a model, but just to inspire in order to activate and a virtuous spiral. I support the idea of modeling biodiversity targets on the SDGs presented by Mr. Appiah. For your information, but I already spoke about it, the report on the SDGs we are working on. Finally, as an ocean lover, I'm very impressed by the energy and the leadership of you, Pluricanals. As you understood, Stefan and I will support, Stefan Bijou and I will support the Blue Belt. I already have a blue belt that is the logo of the ocean as common initiative that promote the idea of individual and collective responsibility to protect the ocean or global common. So many thanks to all the speakers and to you, Ilias, for the moderation. And let's continue this dialogue on the Blue Belt with the intergroup Climate, Biodiversity and Sustainable Development. We will be interested to support this initiative with the ambition to accelerate the protection of the ocean or global common. Thank you very much. And I will follow at the two others meeting we will have on these issues. Merci beaucoup.